Speaker.
Stuart Nash.
Mr Speaker, let me just sum up the contributions to this bill from the different parties. We've had David Seymour there ignoring all the evidence that shows actually an increase in tobacco price stops people from smoking. So when he says that every single person who smokes is going to be hit with $2,000 a year, that's actually wrong, because the evidence, the academic peer-reviewed evidence actually shows that an increase in price will actually stop a number of those people spending significantly more money on tobacco than they are at the moment. Mr Speaker, we've had the Minister, and the other thing about the Act, member, Mr Speaker, is he stands up here and he calls this bill an abomination, a disgrace, how terrible it is, and then he votes for it. Mr Seymour should actually stand for something, because I know the Prime Minister has given him a mandate to actually vote against a bill that he doesn't agree with. So Mr Seymour does have the mandate to vote against this bill. He despises this bill, but he's voting for it. In Labor, when we don't agree with a piece of legislation, we vote against it. Mr Speaker, we've had the Minister ignoring our calls to actually get it right and turn this into a real success and a piece of legislation that will work, a piece of legislation that can actually be backed by academic, peer-reviewed research, as well as community groups who are dealing with this issue every single day. So what I would say to the Minister is I disagree with his last speech. Don't take our yes vote as unqualified support for this bill, because we have a number of concerns about the money that is being collected. The excise, the $425 million that has been collected on this, that it will just go into the consolidated fund. There will not be more cessation programs. There will be less help for people who want to quit. And what we would really like to see, as Louisa Wall and I have talked about numerous times now, is more programs targeted at those in the early education program. So it is absolutely uncool from any stage to smoke. We've got to turn that peer review round from, okay, my peers are smoking, hell, I better be cool, to it is very uncool to smoke. We need a decent chunk of this $425 million into education and smoking cessation programs. And I think the Minister could have got a lot of political capital if he had actually come out and said this policy is going to be backed by good public policy in terms of cessation programs and education programs. We've actually had New Zealand First stand up, ignore the evidence and say, get stuffed, to any measure that will actually reduce the harm caused by smoking. And I'm a little bit surprised, actually. I thought that New Zealand First were on the right track, took an evidence-based approach and really drove outcomes. And to stand up and say, get stuffed, to 10% of all deaths in our health system are from smoking. 10%, and they're saying to any measure that addresses that, get stuffed. I think that's the wrong message. And then, Mr Speaker, you have Labor. Now, Labor has tried to take a balanced, evidence-based approach to this. We would have liked to have seen a greater increase in excise tax to 20%, as recommended by University of Otago researchers. We would have liked to have seen a whole lot of this money, not all of it, but a lot of this money put into programs that actually help people break that nicotine addiction, which is an incredibly powerful addiction. We would have liked to have seen a chunk of this money stuck into education programs that actually stopped people smoking before they started. Mr Speaker, we all agree that a smoke-free New Zealand by 2025 is an admirable target. We all want to get there because it is right. It is right for this country and it is right for the people who live here. But what we don't agree on at this point in time is the measures put forward by this budget. They could have been better, they should have been stronger. We will support this legislation, Mr Speaker, but we just think it could have been a lot more powerful and sent a much stronger message. Thank you very much.